Woman confronts Trump about her lost job. His offer makes the entire rally emotional. The kitchen clock ticked past midnight as Sarah Williams sat at her worn kitchen table, staring at the stack of bills illuminated by the flickering fluorescent light overhead. Her fingers traced the red "Final Notice" stamp on the mortgage statement, a gesture that had become an unwanted nightly ritual. "Mom, you're still up?" Sarah quickly shuffled the papers together, forcing a smile as Emma, her 16-year-old daughter, appeared in the doorway in her faded pajamas. "Just doing some paperwork, honey. Why aren't you asleep?" Emma leaned against the doorframe, her long brown hair messy from tossing and turning. "I heard Tommy crying again." Sarah's heart sank. Was it another nightmare? "No," Emma hesitated, playing with a loose thread on her sleeve. "He was hungry. I gave him my sandwich from dinner." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She'd noticed Emma eating less lately but hadn't wanted to acknowledge why. Now the truth stood before her in threadbare pajamas that were getting too short at the ankles. "Emma, sweetheart, you need to eat too. Tommy needs it more. His medications make him hungry, and he's growing. And—" "Stop!" Sarah's voice cracked. "Just stop." The silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the hum of the ancient refrigerator, nearly empty now, like everything else in their lives. "Go to bed, honey. Tomorrow will be better." Emma didn't move. "That's what you said yesterday. And the day before." "Emma." "And the day before that." Emma's voice rose slightly. "Ever since Carson's closed?" "I said go to bed," Sarah snapped, immediately regretting her tone as Emma flinched. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm just tired. Please get some sleep." Emma turned away, then paused. "I saw the college letter in the mail today. I didn't open it. We'll talk about it tomorrow." "Why bother?" Emma's whisper carried clearly in the quiet kitchen. "We both know I can't go anyway." After Emma's footsteps faded upstairs, Sarah buried her face in her hands. 3 months. 3 months since Carson Manufacturing had gathered all 300 employees in the cafeteria for the important announcement. 3 months since Regional Manager Derek Thompson, who'd never once visited the factory floor in his 5 years overseeing operations, had read from a prepared statement about market pressures and competitive necessity and transitioning operations to our new facility in Monterey. The memory played in her mind like a bad movie she couldn't turn off. "Any questions?" Thompson had asked. His designer tie perfectly knotted while he delivered the news that was destroying 300 lives. Sarah had stood up, her 15 years of experience giving her the courage others lacked. "What about the promises? The investment in new equipment last year? The bonus structure for efficiency improvements?" Thompson had smiled, that corporate smile that never reached his eyes. "All business decisions must be evaluated based on current market conditions. The company appreciates your years of service and will provide a generous severance package." "Generous?" Mike Rodriguez, 23 years on the line, had shouted. "My kid's got cancer. What about our health insurance?" "Cobra benefits will be available for eligible employees to purchase." The cafeteria had erupted then. Sarah remembered Lisa from accounting crying, Bob from maintenance throwing his hard hat against the wall, young Jenny from HR trying desperately to maintain order, while looking like she might vomit. A sound from upstairs brought Sarah back to the present. She rose quietly and climbed the stairs, pausing outside Tommy's room. Through the crack in the door, she could see Emma had crawled into bed with her little brother, both of them finally asleep. The sight broke something inside her. Her children were suffering, and she was failing them. All her life, she'd done everything right. Finished high school despite getting pregnant at 17, started at Carson's on the assembly line when Emma was still in diapers, took night classes at the community college, worked her way up to floor supervisor, saved what she could, paid her taxes, believed in the system. And now? Now she was 47 years old with 2 kids, a mortgage she couldn't pay, and a stack of rejection letters from every manufacturer within 50 miles. Too qualified, they said in the interviews, when they bothered to give her one at all. What they meant was too old or too expensive. They wanted young workers they could pay minimum wage, not experienced supervisors with actual knowledge of manufacturing processes. Sarah walked to her bedroom, automatically avoiding the squeaky floorboard outside Tommy's room. The bedroom walls still held family photos from better times: Tommy's first day of school, Emma's middle school graduation, the whole family at Carson's company picnic last summer. Her late husband James smiled out from several frames, gone 5 years now from the heart attack that had struck without warning at 43. "I don't know what to do anymore, James," she whispered to his photo on the nightstand. "I'm trying, but I'm losing them. I'm losing everything." Sleep wouldn't come. Sarah tossed and turned, her mind spinning through the same desperate calculations it did every night. The severance was gone, eaten up by mortgage payments and Tommy's medications. Her 401k was depleted. The few job prospects she had would barely cover groceries, let alone the mortgage and medical bills. At 3 a.m., she gave up on sleep and went back downstairs. The television droned quietly. She'd started leaving it on at night to mask the sound of her crying from the kids. A political ad played, showing happy workers in a factory. "Bringing jobs back to America," the voiceover proclaimed. "Join President Trump at the upcoming rally." Sarah stared at the television, an idea forming. The rally was tomorrow, just 30 miles away. She'd never been political, had voted based more on hope than conviction. But now, she found a piece of cardboard in the recycling bin and a marker in Emma's school supplies. Her hands shook as she began to write. "Lost my Job. After 15 years, my kids are going hungry." The letters were uneven, emotion making her usually steady hands tremble. Was she really going to do this? Stand up in front of thousands of people? The thought made her stomach churn. The sound of Tommy coughing upstairs made her press the marker harder against the cardboard. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about her kids. About Emma giving away her dinner. About Tommy's nightmares. About all the workers at Carson's who'd lost everything. Morning light was creeping through the windows when Emma found her mother still at the kitchen table, the sign propped against a chair. "Mom, what's that for?" Sarah looked up at her daughter, seeing the worry in those young eyes that should have been focused on boys and books and dreams of college. "It's for us, baby. For all of us." "The Trump rally?" "Mom, you hate politics." "I hate watching my children go hungry more." Sarah stood up, her decision made. "I have to try something. Anything." Emma picked up the sign, reading it slowly. "You're really going to do this? Will you help me?" Sarah asked softly. "I need you to watch Tommy today." Emma set the sign down and hugged her mother tight. "Be careful, okay? Some of those rallies get crazy." "I will." Sarah held her daughter, remembering when Emma was small enough to carry. "I promise." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of routine. Getting Tommy his medications, making breakfast from what little was left in the pantry. Trying not to notice how Emma only pretended to eat her single piece of toast. As Sarah dressed for the rally, she caught sight of herself in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back looked tired, older than her years. Her brown hair needed touching up at the roots, her clothes were showing wear. But her eyes held something new. Determination. Maybe even a spark of hope. The sign sat in her car's passenger seat as she drove to the rally venue. The crowds were already forming, people carrying professionally printed signs and wearing campaign merchandise. Sarah clutched her handmade cardboard sign and joined the line, her heart pounding. "First rally?" the woman behind her asked kindly. Sarah nodded, gripping her sign tighter. "You'll love it. Such great energy. What's your sign say?" Sarah turned it slightly so the woman couldn't read it. "Just something personal." The line inched forward. Security checked bags and signs. Sarah held her breath when they came to her, but they waved her through. Inside, the venue was already half full. Music blasted from speakers. People chattered excitedly. She found a spot near the back, legs trembling slightly. Her phone buzzed, a text from Emma. "Tommy's okay. Be brave, Mom. Love you." Sarah brushed away tears, straightening her shoulders. She thought of her empty refrigerator, of Emma's unopened college letter, of Tommy's growing pile of medical bills, of all the promises made to the workers at Carson's, broken one by one. The rally would start soon. Sarah stood her ground, her cardboard sign ready, waiting for her moment to be heard. The crowd grew thicker as more people filed in. Sarah's palms were sweating now, making the cardboard sign slippery in her grip. A group of young men nearby started chanting campaign slogans, their voices echoing off the arena walls. "You okay, hon? You look a little pale." An elderly woman touched Sarah's arm gently. Her name tag read, "Betty, Rally Volunteer." "I'm fine," Sarah managed. "Just nervous." Betty patted her arm. "First rally jitters?" "Don't worry, it's always exciting at first. Would you like some moi?" She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes catching Sarah's sign. Her expression changed. "Oh, dear. Carson Manufacturing?" Sarah nodded, throat tight. "My nephew worked there too. Maintenance department." Betty's voice softened. 22 years. "Bob Harris? You know him?" "He threw his hard hat at the wall when they told us." Sarah attempted a smile that came out more like a grimace. How is he?" Betty shook her head. "Moved to Ohio last month. His daughter's letting him stay in her basement until he finds work." She squeezed Sarah's arm. "Listen, during the Q&A section, they usually take questions from this area. If you want to speak, that's your best chance." Sarah's heart jumped. They really let people ask questions? "Sometimes. But honey." Betty glanced at the sign again. "Are you sure about this? These crowds can be unpredictable." Before Sarah could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. More security personnel were filing in, meaning the rally would start soon. Betty gave Sarah's arm a final squeeze and hurried off to her assigned position. Sarah checked her phone again. 2 texts from Emma. "Tommy ate his lunch. All good here." "Did you eat anything, Mom?" She ignored the second message. Food wasn't important right now. The granola bar in her purse would hold her until what? Until she somehow got the President of the United States to care about one unemployed factory worker? The absurdity of her plan suddenly hit her full force. "This is stupid," she whispered to herself. "What am I even doing here?" A memory flashed. Tommy crying last night. Emma giving away her dinner. The college letter sitting unopened. Number, she couldn't give up now. The arena lights dimmed. The crowd's energy shifted, became more focused. Secret Service agents appeared at regular intervals around the stage. Sarah's legs felt wooden, her mouth dry. A man in a suit approached the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome." The roar of the crowd drowned out the rest. Sarah's sign trembled in her hands as music blasted through the speakers. This was really happening. After 3 months of feeling powerless, of watching her children suffer, of being ignored by every employer in 50 miles, she was actually here. Her phone buzzed again. Emma had sent a photo of Tommy smiling, holding up his homework. The sight nearly broke her. Her little boy, trying so hard to be brave while his world fell apart. Emma growing up too fast, carrying burdens no teenager should have to bear. The crowd's cheering reached a fever pitch. Secret Service members moved into final positions. Campaign staff hurried around the edges of the stage, making last-minute adjustments to the teleprompters. Sarah gripped her sign tighter, her mother's words echoing in her memory. "Sometimes God puts us in hard places so we can help others who are hurting too." She thought of all the Carson workers, Lisa from accounting with her elderly mother to support, Mike Rodriguez with his sick child, young Jenny from HR who just bought her first house. Maybe that's why she was here. Not just for Emma and Tommy, but for all of them. The opening speeches began. Local politicians, campaign staffers, each one promising prosperity and better days ahead. Sarah barely heard them. Her focus narrowed to the cardboard sign in her hands, to the words she'd written in that moment of desperate courage at 3 a.m. A woman nearby noticed the sign, read it, and quickly looked away. Then looked back. She nudged her husband, who glanced over. More eyes turned toward Sarah. Whispers spread. Some sympathetic. Some suspicious. "Is that real?" she heard someone mutter. "Carson Manufacturing, I read about that." "Probably. Just another protester." "No, my cousin worked there too." The whispers were drowned out by another wave of cheering. This was it. The moment was coming. Sarah thought of Emma's text. "Be brave, Mom." She would be. For her children. For her co-workers. For herself. The president was about to take the stage. The arena erupted as President Trump took the stage. The noise so deafening Sarah could feel it in her chest. Her cardboard sign felt flimsy now, inadequate, against the sea of professional banners and flags surrounding her. USA, USA, USA! The chant rippled through the crowd. Sarah stood silent, her throat tight. The elderly volunteer, Betty, appeared at her elbow again. Remember, honey, when he opens for questions, raise your hand high. Don't wave the sign yet. Just your hand. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Betty squeezed her arm and disappeared into the crowd. The first 40 minutes were a blur of campaign promises and crowd reactions. Sarah barely heard them, her mind racing between thoughts of home and doubt about what she was doing. Her phone vibrated. Emma, again. Did you get to speak yet? Sarah's fingers shook as she typed. Not yet. Soon, maybe. Mom? Yes? Whatever happens, I'm proud of you. The tears came then, quick and hot. Sarah blinked them back furiously. She couldn't cry. Not now. Look at these numbers, folks. Trump's voice boomed through the arena. Employment up. Manufacturing up. We're bringing back American jobs. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She gripped her sign tighter, the cardboard edges cutting into her palm. A man in front of her turned around, noticing her expression. You okay, ma'am? Sarah started to nod, then stopped. She wasn't okay. None of this was okay. I lost my job, she found herself saying. 300 of us did. When Carson Manufacturing moved to Mexico. The man's expression shifted. Carson? Here in town? 3 months ago. He frowned. But they just got all that new equipment last year. My buddy's company installed it. $2 million worth, Sarah confirmed. Paid for partly with government incentives for keeping jobs in America. Others nearby were listening now. Sarah saw phones being pulled out, people Googling Carson Manufacturing. Holy shit, someone muttered. She's telling the truth. My cousin works in trucking, a woman added. Says 4 more plants in the region are talking about moving south too. The murmurs spread, a ripple of unease in the otherwise enthusiastic crowd. A campaign staffer noticed, heading their way with a practiced smile. Everything okay in this section? Ask her, the man in front said, gesturing to Sarah. The staffer, young, blonde, wearing a badge that read Jessica, turned to Sarah. Her eyes went straight to the sign and her smile faltered. Ma'am, if you'd like to submit a comment, we have forms at the... When's the Q&A portion? Sarah interrupted, surprising herself with her steadiness. Jessica blinked. Well, yes, there will be a brief question period, but... That's all I needed to know. Thank you. The staffer lingered uncertainly, then moved away, speaking rapidly into her headset. They won't let you ask anything real, a cynical voice said from behind Sarah. It's all screened. Watch me, Sarah whispered, more to herself than anyone else. The speech continued. Sarah's legs ached from standing, but she didn't move. She thought of Emma giving away her dinner, of Tommy's medical bills, of her dwindling savings. Each thought stoked a fire in her chest that burned away the fear. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Trump moved away from the teleprompters. You know what, folks? Let's hear from you now. Who's got questions? Real questions, not the fake news kind. The crowd laughed. Hands shot up everywhere. Sarah raised her hand, not holding her sign up yet, just like Betty had advised. Trump pointed to someone in the front. A softball question about his latest tweet. Then another about his campaign slogan. Sarah's arm trembled from staying raised. The man in front of her turned again. Don't give up, he said quietly. Keep it up. A woman nearby nodded encouragement. The ripple of shared hardship had created a pocket of support around her. Trump was pointing to a third person when Jessica the staffer suddenly appeared at his shoulder, whispering something. He waved her off, scanning the crowd again. Sarah's arm felt like lead. But she thought of Emma's text. I'm proud of you. And then it happened. How about you? The lady in the blue shirt back there. Sarah's heart stopped. Trump was pointing directly at her. The crowd parted slightly. A spotlight swung her way. A campaign volunteer was already heading toward her with a microphone. Your question, ma'am? Sarah's legs shook as she gripped the microphone. The spotlight was blinding. Her mouth went dry. Mr. President. Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. I lost my job at Carson Manufacturing 3 months ago. They moved our entire operation to Mexico after getting millions in government incentives to stay here. The arena had gone eerily quiet. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "I'm 47 years old," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "And no one will hire me. I have 2 kids, and I'm about to lose my house." She paused, fighting back tears. "You promised to bring our jobs back. What happened to that promise?" She raised her sign then, the words clear in the spotlight. "Lost my job. After 15 years, my kids are going hungry." The silence deepened. Even the usual hecklers stood quiet, sensing the raw authenticity in her voice. Trump had stopped moving on stage, staring directly at her. The teleprompters scrolled unused. What happened next would change everything. Trump stepped away from the podium. Secret Service agents tensed visibly. Their earpieces crackled with concern. This wasn't in the script. "Bring her down here," Trump said into his microphone. The crowd murmured. Sarah felt frozen in place. "Come on," Trump gestured. "Let's talk about this." The man in front of Sarah gently nudged her. "Go on," he whispered. "Make it count." Security personnel converged, creating a path through the crowd. Sarah's legs moved automatically, her sign clutched to her chest like a shield. The walk to the stage felt endless. Up close, the lights were even more blinding. Sarah could barely make out Trump's face as he stepped toward her. "What's your name?" he asked, his usual bombastic tone notably absent. "Sarah Williams, sir." "And what exactly did you do at Carson?" "I was the floor supervisor for the electrical components division. 15 years there. Started on the line, worked my way up." Trump nodded, then turned to someone off stage. "Get John over here. Now." The crowd watched in confused silence as a man in a sharp suit hurried forward, carrying a leather portfolio. What happened next would change not just Sarah's life, but the lives of hundreds of others. The man with the leather portfolio reached the stage, slightly out of breath. The spotlight now included all 3 of them, Sarah, Trump, and this newcomer who would change everything. "John Friedman runs 3 manufacturing plants in Pennsylvania," Trump explained, turning back to Sarah. "John, you still looking for a floor supervisor at the Lancaster facility?" John nodded, opening his portfolio. "Yes, sir. For the past 2 months. We've had trouble finding someone with the right experience in electrical components." Sarah's heart pounded. Was this really happening? After 3 months of rejection letters and unanswered applications? "Perfect," Trump said. "Sarah here has 15 years' experience. Problem solved." The crowd began to cheer, but Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Lancaster. She knew where that was. "Wait," she said, her voice barely a whisper at first, then stronger. "Wait." The cheering quieted. Trump turned back to her, looking puzzled. "Lancaster's 4 hours away," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "I can't leave. My mother's in hospice care here. My kids' whole lives are in this town." The silence in the arena grew heavy. This wasn't following the usual rally script. Trump's expression changed, and for a moment, he seemed genuinely caught off guard. John Friedman shifted uncomfortably. "We could offer relocation assistance." "You don't understand," Sarah interrupted, tears threatening again. "My son Tommy, he has special needs. He's finally settled in his school here, with teachers who understand him. And Emma, she's in her junior year, all her friends are here, and my mother." Her voice trailed off. The perfect solution was crumbling before it even began. Then a voice called out from the crowd. "I own Mitchell Properties." Heads turned as a middle-aged woman pushed her way forward. She wore a business suit and carried herself with confidence. "Sarah, we have 3 apartment complexes in Lancaster. If you take the job, I'll give you 6 months rent-free in any unit you choose. We need good people in this economy." Before Sarah could process this, another voice rang out. "I'm the head nurse at Lancaster Memorial's hospice unit." A man in medical scrubs stood up. "We have an excellent facility. I'll personally help coordinate your mother's transfer." The crowd began buzzing. More people stood up. "I'm a special education coordinator for Lancaster schools. My brother runs a moving company. I can help with the paperwork." Trump stood back, watching as the spontaneous offers of help multiplied. Even his security detail seemed surprised by the turn of events. Sarah gripped her sign tighter, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say." "Say yes." John Friedman said quietly. The job starts at $65,000, full benefits from day one. We need someone who knows what they're doing. A woman near the front called out, I'll watch your kids after school. I run a daycare center. My daughter's in junior year too, another voice added. She'd love to show Emma around. Sarah's legs felt weak. Betty, the elderly volunteer, appeared beside her with a chair. Sit down before you fall down, honey, she said gently. Sarah sank into the chair, her mind spinning. Was this real? Could this actually work? Her phone buzzed in her pocket. With trembling fingers, she pulled it out. Emma had texted. Mom? You're on television. What's happening? Sarah stared at the message, tears falling freely now. All around her, people were exchanging contact information, making plans, offering help. Complete strangers, coming together to lift up one family. Trump had moved back to the podium, but instead of his usual rally speech, he was watching the scene unfold with an uncharacteristically thoughtful expression. This, he said finally, this is what America is about. Not just jobs, community, people helping people. The crowd erupted in cheers again, but Sarah barely heard them. Her fingers moved over her phone's keyboard. Emma, honey, I think things are finally going to be okay. Mrs. Williams, the nurse called softly. Your mother's awake and asking for you. Sarah looked up from her laptop where she'd been reviewing production reports in the hospice facility's family room. 3 months into their new life in Lancaster, she'd developed a routine. Early mornings at the plant, afternoons split between Tommy's therapy sessions and her mother's care, evenings helping Emma with college applications. How is she today, Marie? Sarah asked, gathering her things. The nurse smiled warmly. Much better. The new pain management protocol is working wonders. And she couldn't stop talking about Tommy's visit yesterday. Walking down the sunlit corridor of Lancaster Memorial's hospice unit, Sarah marveled at how different this was from what she'd feared. The facility wasn't just clean and professional, it was genuinely welcoming. Family photos lined the walls, soft music played in the gardens, and the staff knew every patient by name. Sarah, honey, her mother's voice greeted her before she even entered the room. Come, look what Tommy made in art therapy. Catherine Mitchell sat propped up in her adjustable bed, looking more animated than she had in weeks. A colorful abstract painting was propped on her bedside table. He used all my favorite colors, Catherine beamed. That boy remembers everything. Sarah settled into the comfortable visitor's chair, so different from the hard plastic ones at their old hospice. He's doing so well here, Mom. His new art therapist really understands him. And Emma, how's my future engineer? Top of her class in pre-engineering, Sarah couldn't keep the pride from her voice. The college counselor thinks she has a real shot at MIT. Catherine reached for her daughter's hand. Tell me the truth, Sarah. Are you happy here? The question caught Sarah off guard. She thought about that desperate night making the sign, about standing in that crowded rally, about all that had happened since. I am, Mom. It's different than I imagined, but... A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Chen from Tommy's school stood in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt. I was visiting another patient and saw your car in the lot, Sarah. I have great news about Tommy's progress report. Sarah waved her in, and soon the room was filled with excited discussion about Tommy's improvements in his new school environment. The sensory room we set up is working exactly as we hoped, Dr. Chen explained, and having a dedicated aide who understands his triggers has made such a difference. Catherine squeezed Sarah's hand. See? God puts us where we need to be, even when we don't understand the path. Later that afternoon, Sarah pulled into the parking lot of Mitchell Properties' Lancaster Heights complex. The welcome home banner from their move-in day was gone, but the warmth of the welcome remained. Mrs. Williams, Jake, the maintenance supervisor, called from his golf cart. Package came for you. I put it inside your door. Thanks, Jake. And please, for the 100th time, call me Sarah. No can do, Mrs. Williams. My mama raised me right. Sarah laughed, heading for the elevator. The package turned out to be Emma's new graphing calculator for her advanced math class, courtesy of the company's Employee Education Fund. Her phone buzzed as she unlocked the apartment door. Team meeting at 4? Need your input on the new quality control protocols, John? Sarah smiled, typing back a quick confirmation. The job at Lancaster Manufacturing had exceeded all her expectations. John had been true to his word about everything: the salary, the benefits, the opportunities for advancement. "Mom," Emma's voice greeted her as she entered. "You're not going to believe what happened at Robotics Club." Emma launched into an excited description of their latest project, her hands moving animatedly as she explained the engineering concepts. She was a different person from the quiet, worried girl who'd given away her dinner just 3 months ago. "And Mrs. Martinez says, if we win regionals, Michigan T-Scouts will be there." "That's amazing, honey. Where's your brother?" "In his room with Kevin from next door. They're working on their science project." Sarah peeked into Tommy's room, where he and his new friend were carefully constructing a model solar system. The boys barely noticed her, absorbed in their work. 3 months ago, the thought of Tommy making friends had seemed like an impossible dream. Now, her phone buzzed again. This time it was Betty, the rally volunteer who'd become like family. "Watching the news. Another plant closing in our old town. Thinking of our Carson family. You changed more lives than you know." Sarah's throat tightened. She thought of Mike Rodriguez, who'd followed her to Lancaster with his sick child, now getting treatment at the renowned children's hospital here. And Lisa from accounting, who'd found a better-paying job through the networks they'd built that day at the rally. The community that had welcomed them that day hadn't stopped at words. They'd created a blueprint for helping displaced workers, connecting them with opportunities, housing, schools, and support services. What had started as one desperate mother's plea had grown into something bigger than any of them. A timer beeped in the kitchen. Time to start dinner. These days, their fridge was full. Emma no longer had to pretend she wasn't hungry. Tommy's medications were covered by their new insurance. The unopened college letter that had seemed like a cruel joke was now pinned to Emma's vision board, alongside MIT brochures and robotics competition medals. "Mom?" Tommy appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Can Kevin stay for dinner? His mom says it's okay." "Of course, honey. Set an extra place." As she cooked, Sarah could hear the happy chaos of her new life. Emma practicing her robotics presentation, Tommy and Kevin debating planet sizes. The distant hum of the community garden machinery, where she'd started volunteering on weekends. The local news station had asked to interview her last week about the rally that changed everything. She'd been hesitant at first, but John had encouraged her. "Your story matters," he'd said. "It shows what's possible when people choose hope over anger, community over division." The reporter had asked if she was still angry about Carson Manufacturing's closure. Sarah stirred the pasta sauce, remembering the fury and fear that had driven her to make that sign. The anger had been real, but it had also been fuel, pushing her towards something better than she'd imagined. "No," she told the reporter, "I'm not angry anymore. I'm too busy building something new. Sometimes losing everything shows you what you're really capable of. And sometimes help comes from places you least expect it." The reporter had pressed, "But don't you think we need better policies to protect American workers?" "Of course we do," Sarah had answered. "But we also need to remember that we're stronger when we work together to solve problems, not just point fingers at who caused them." What happened at that rally wasn't about politics. It was about people choosing to care about each other. The timer beeped again. Sarah called the kids to set the table. "Mom," Emma appeared with her laptop. "MIT's virtual tour is tonight. Can we watch after dinner?" "Don't forget we're visiting Grandma later," Tommy added. "I made her another painting." Sarah looked at her children. Emma confident and excited about her future, Tommy thriving in his new environment. She thought about her mother receiving better care than they could have imagined, her fulfilling new job, the community that had embraced them. Her phone buzzed one last time. A text from John. "Board approved your promotion to Director of Manufacturing Operations. Announcement tomorrow." "You earned this, Sarah." She typed back a quick thank you, blinking back happy tears. "Mom?" Emma's voice was soft. "Are you okay?" Sarah pulled her daughter into a hug. "I'm more than okay, honey. I'm grateful. For the job? For everything. For you being so brave when things were bad. For Tommy adjusting so well. For all the people who helped us when we needed it most." Emma hugged her back. "Remember what you said at the rally? About just wanting to be heard?" "I remember. You were heard, Mom. And now other people are being heard too. Because you were brave first." Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Sarah stood on her balcony, looking at the Lancaster skyline. She could see the manufacturing plant from here, its lights promising stability and purpose. The hospital where her mother was receiving excellent care. The school where both her children were thriving. Betty's words from the rally echoed in her mind. Sometimes when you're brave enough to speak your truth, the whole world conspires to help. Tomorrow, she would wake up and go to her new job, now with added responsibilities and opportunities. She would visit her mother and help Emma with college applications and celebrate Tommy's achievements. She would continue building this new life they'd found. But for now, she stood in the cool evening air, feeling something that had once seemed lost forever. Hope, not just for her family, but for all the others still searching for their own new beginnings.